Hey good folks, welcome to another video from A Plain Truth. Today I want to go over this website, I don't even know how to say it, Ahuwahzeus, and this is a site that had been taken down. He's come back up again, and he has some very information I've never seen anywhere else, and I want to get into it. But he's also been attacking me when I stopped posting some of his work on my videos, and called me a murderous shill on his previous document, previous website, WordPress, and also that he says flat earth is a psyop, which, great, it's a psyop, but that doesn't mean it's not real. And it was introduced by the Jesuits. But he gets into a lot of very important information, so I want to go through it today with you. And bear with me, it's a little long, but there's so much information here. I want to get it down. I can break it down into parts a little later. So let's start with the United States. And one of the things, America, we call ourselves Americans, but it's the United States of America. America is South America. America is Central America and all the countries within. America is Canada as well. So it's another game they play by having us call ourselves Americans, which totally disses the rest of our fellow countrymen in North America, South America, Central America, and the Americas. See how they play the Mandela effect? Way back then. They're still doing it today. All right, let's get into it. The United States is a corporation. What date was Washington, D.C. founded, folks? February 23rd, 1871, with the Organic Act. The United States is defined as a federal corporation. Corpse is the root word, dead entity. U.S. Code 3002, Section 15. Very important. The Virginia Company was transformed into the United States Corporation during the Revolutionary War by Freemasonic founders like George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, John Hancock, Benjamin Franklin, who were working under the Grand Lodge of England. Let me read that again. They were working under the Grand Freemason Lodge of England. Notice the colors of the American flag. A U.S. flag is the same flag colors as the British flag, same colors as the East Indian Tea Company, who were supposedly fought against. The Virginia Company was issued by the British royal family from the city of London for North America settlements. Around 1213, King John surrendered the King of England to the Holy See, the Vatican, under the Golden Bull or Bulla Aurea. In 1215, under direct papal authority, King John issued the Magna Carta, Latin for Great Charter. This officially established the 1 square mile block called the City of London Corporation as a sovereign entity from England and London, which we'll get into. The Holy See uses Latin. Who knows what Latin means, folks? Nobody. Nobody even knows what Latin means. Latin America, but nobody knows what the word Latin means. The Holy See uses Latin for official documents, and the Vatican uses Latin as its official language to obfuscate. Those inside have nose, for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Novus Ordo Seclorum is Latin and translates into the New Order of the Ages and was put on the United States Great Seal and the $1 bill. Washington, D.C. is located both in Virginia and Maryland. That's why it's called Virgin Land, or the Virgin Mary, because D.C. was the new birthing. D.C. was originally called Rome in, get the numbers, 1669, which is stated in the Catholic Encyclopedia. D.C. is Roman architecture and Capitol Hill is named after Capitoline Hill in Rome. The ancient Roman fasces symbol is all over federal buildings and federal seals. That's the caning rods and the axeman's hench you see in the Senate House where the president gives his State of the Union. They got fasces for fascism. So, the Bill of Innocent taking England under his protection. From this time onwards, the Pope would be England's feudal lord, receiving an annual tribute of 1,000 marks, or get this, 666 pounds, on October 3rd, 1213, at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. These arrangements are confirmed by a royal charter bearing a golden seal, and by the king placing his hands between those of the papal legate as a token of his submission. The Virginia Company of London was a joint stock company chartered by King James in 1606 to establish a colony in North America. United States means, under the Cornell U.S. Code 15, United States means a federal corporation. Vatican City. As settlements advanced up the country from lower Maryland, a fair proportion of those who acquired land in what is now the district were Catholics. In 1669, a parcel of land called Rome was laid out of Francis Pope, extending to the south of the inlet called the Tiber. The Potomac used to be called the Tiber River, folks. Pope of Rome on the Tiber was sheriff of Charles County and in all probability a Catholic. The well-known families of Carroll, Diggs, Queen, and Young were the possessions of extensive landed estates before the American Revolution. John Carroll was the richest man in the country at the time. He was a Jesuit. He donated land for Washington, D.C. that was Rome, Maryland, and founded Georgetown University 6 months before Washington, D.C. His other nephew or cousins and brothers, Daniel Carroll, and others, were on the signed the Declaration of the Constitution, and also had very prominent holdings. Again, they were the richest family at the time. Within 30 years, the fraternity had spread throughout Europe and American colonies. Freemasons became very popular in colonial America. George Washington was a Mason. Ben Franklin served as head of the fraternity in Pennsylvania, as did Paul Revere and Joseph Warren in Massachusetts. Other well-known Masons involved with the founding of America, including John Hancock, John Sullivan, Lafayette, Baron Frederick von Steuben, Nathanael Greene, and John Paul Jones. Another Mason, Chief Justice John Marshall, shaped the Supreme Court into its present form. During the Revolutionary era, Masons of note, including Washington, Alexander Hamilton, Franklin, Adams, Richard Henry Lee, and John Hancock. So we have a trilateral. It's that Washington, D.C. is the religious, the military arm, the Vatican is the religious, and the British city of London, which we'll get into in a minute here, is the banking. But British Crown agents, just to get you a little more into the flavor of how we haven't succeeded from Britain, far from it. Yale and Harvard, along with several other prestigious universities, are owned by the British Crown. They are authorized by the King of England through the Crown colonies. Yale University was authorized by the English monarch through the Connecticut colony. The University of Harvard was authorized by the English monarch through the Massachusetts Bay colony. The Crown colonies were issued from the City of London Corporation, which is a sovereign municipal corporate state, and a 1-mile square block inside of London where royal and corporate charters are issued from. The Crown colonies are companies owned by the British monarchs and other royal families that do business inside the City of London Corporation. The British royal family uses these universities to recruit their Crown agents, who then serve their interest by infiltrating corporate and government agencies. Many high-level members in the U.S. military and intelligence come from Yale, Brown, or Harvard. Many powerful politicians were educated at these Crown universities. They mostly use secret societies or fraternities for recruiting Crown agents like Skull and Bones, Book and Snake, Porcelain Club, or Phoenix SK Club. Porter Goss, former CIA, is a member of the Book and Snake and was a former director of the CIA. Mark Zuckerberg, who is worth over $75 billion, has been linked with the Phoenix SK Club. From CNN, Anderson Cooper and David Gergen are members of Yale's Manuscript Club. All heads of MI6 have been knighted by the House of Windsor. Former CIA Director and U.S. President George Herbert Walker Bush was knighted under the Order of the Bath. How many people know that? Former U.S. Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger is a Knight of the British Empire. Fraud. Treason. Henry Kissinger is a major developer of their depopulation agenda as the author of the National Security Study Memorandum, the NSSM, a report on slowing population growth. Former chairman of the Federal Reserve, Alan Greenspan, is a Knight of the Order of the British Empire. And let me add that his wife, Andrea Mitchell, was the very first one at 10:05 in the morning after the attacks of 9/11 to report that it was bin Laden that had done the attacks. Alan Greenspan's wife was the first to report that we are being attacked by Osama bin Laden. Get it? John Franklin Mars was knighted by the House of Windsor. That's where the Mars candy come from. One of the meltiest men on the planet is Bill Gates, and he is a Knight of the British Empire, Sir Bill, and worth over $90 billion. And his dad was head of Planned Parenthood, the Rockefeller Planned Parenthood. Bill Gates openly promotes depopulation and uses his wealth to impose deadly vaccines all over the world. Sir Rudy Giuliani is a Knight of the British Empire. Treason. Sir former mayor of New York City Michael Bloomberg is a Knight of the British Empire and worth about $50 billion. Sir General Wesley Clark is a Knight of the British Empire. Wesley Clark. Sir Steven Spielberg is a Knight of the British Empire. Sir Ronald Reagan was a Knight of the British Empire. Shimon Peres, the former president and former minister of Israel, was a British Knight of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. Get that? President and Prime Minister of Israel was also a member of the Order of St. Michael and St. George, Sir Shimon Peres. Knights and court factors serve royal courts. Buckingham Palace is a royal court. So the City of London. The City of London is 1 square mile in London where the 110 livery companies operate. The 110 livery companies represent every industry in the global market. They're the central banking system, folks. Most major corporations today are connected with the livery companies through proxies or subsidiaries. Business at the City of London is mostly private, and they conceal ownership through private contracts. The Knights Templar of London were headquartered at the Inner Temple of the City in London, and today are the Order of the Garter, headed by the British royal family and British peerage. The City of London Corporation, Knights Templar, and Order of the Garter all use the same red cross as a symbol. Get it? Red cross. Christopher Columbus, red cross. Knights of Columbus, red cross. Red cross supposedly to help us, even though they steal money in disaster capitalism. Red cross. Get it? Knights Templar were merchants and bankers that held gold for pilgrims who traveled to Jerusalem and provided them with banknotes, which were then used at the Templars' merchant shops along the way. The Knights Templars established modern banking. London merchants have a monopoly on the gold and silver, which they use as leverage over markets and monetary systems. They also manipulate the price of gold and silver from London each morning. There's 4 guys that sit in a room and set the price of gold and silver. That's how they control the world markets in gold and silver. And please take a look at the new $100 US bill. Half of it's in gold with a gold inkwell, and the writing in cursive in the background in small print is the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence talking about abolishing government. They're telling you what they're going to do. This Templar merchant and banking system is rigged and functions like covert monopolies through hidden corporate conglomerates. Many universities, banks, and merchant companies are connected to the charters that is issued from the City of London Corporation. Some merchant and banking families that operate in London include Grosvenor, Goldsmith, Rothschild, Montagu, Norman, Guinness, Bailey, Sassoon, and Barclay families. The billionaire brothers David and Frederick Barclay own the press holdings, which includes the Telegraph Media Group. Janus Capital founded Tom Bailey merged with the Henderson Group. I used to cover Janus Capital. Janus is the 2-headed coin, 2 sides. Met Mr. Bailey, but I wish I had this information so I could have talked to him about it back then. Barclays is a bank operating from the City of London Corporation, has assets around 1.2 trillion. All right, HSBC was co-founded by the British knight Thomas Sutherland. All these families are British nobilities and knights working under the crown system. HSBC was fined billions of dollars for money laundering. It's all connected, folks. The current governor of Bank of England is Mark Carney, who is a Jesuit educated from St. Francis Xavier High School. Francis Xavier was a co-founder of the Jesuits. Baron Peter Carrington is the Knight of the Garter and has worked at as a high-level politician in the UK as Secretary of State for Defense, Secretary General for NATO, and leader of Her Majesty's most loyal opposition, a position currently held by Jeremy Corbyn, who is a covert Crown Knight. Foreign members of the Garter include King Carlos of Spain, King Carl Gustaf of Sweden, Denmark, kings, queens, Japan. They are members of the Order of the Garter because they covertly do business in London. All right? Again, the United States is a federal corporation. It's really a continuation of the Virginia Company. The Virginia Company was issued by the British Crown from the City of London Corporation for North American settlements. Former Governor of Bank of New England, Baron Montagu Norman, helped to establish the BIS, or the Bank of International Settlements, in Basel, Switzerland, and work with Nazi businessmen. And there's only like 3 or 4 countries that do not clear their banking through the Bank of International Settlement. Their names are like North Korea, Syria, and Iran. Get it? They're using the Bank for International Settlements as a proxy to steal from corporate governments through foreign tax contracts like the Belgian Scheldt dues. They then launder and conceal the wealth in private Swiss bank accounts. Washington, D.C. was established as a municipal corporate state and headquarters of the United States through the 1871 District of Columbia Organic Act, based on the debts owed to foreign entities like the Hudson Bay Company, the Irish government, and the Kingdom of Belgium. How many people know that? We were in massive debt in 1871, right? Civil War and everything else. So what do we have to do? We owe it to these entities, the Hudson Bay Company, the Irish government, Kingdom of Belgium. That's why they established Washington, D.C. as a corporation. That's also in 1933 when we got the birth certificates and pledged against the collateral of debt owed for our bankruptcy of the United States, which we have never gotten out of bankruptcy. And this is why they run up the debt on everybody, because we're still under debt servitude. And this is why your birth or birthing certificate, when the water breaks, that they put the foot on the landmark on the paper, so you're under contract to be beholden with your securitized number on your birth certificate, because we are beholden and slaves to our debt servitude, to the banksters here. The British criminal HSBC Bank is international and operates in Switzerland. Some influential London bankers, the Rothschilds, Goldsmiths, Sassoon, Duke's Governor, and Andrew Bailey. All right. Two things I want to point out here, too, before we go on to the next one, one is this person, whoever's running this site, I don't trust him completely. He puts in some disinfo. Two, he says he's been threatened many times, but with these powerful people, he'd be taken out if they really wanted to. And three, he showed notes and showed connections to where he got his information from on the first piece in the United States, but he doesn't do it anywhere else. He doesn't back up what he says. He just says it and leaves it, but there's no documentation. So take that with a grain of salt. Okay, Skull and Bones. We know about Yale, 322. Look at the numbers there. Nazi Skull and Bones, Schwartz. Does that ring any bells? The Schwarzenberg family is an Austrian Bohemian nobility serving the House of Habsburg, and they're involved with military politics in the Roman Catholic Church. They have origins from Bavaria and are covertly in a league with the House of Wittelsbach. On their coat of arms is a raven pecking at a decapitated head. Lovely. Prince Karl Schwarzenberg is the head of the family as a member of the Czech Parliament and the Knight of Habsburg's Order of the Golden Fleece. They are a Roman Catholic family connected with Protestantism. Now, the Protestants supposedly broke away in protest against the church, saying, we can decide for ourselves what the Bible says. You don't have to decide. But again, two sides of the same coin. Gustavus Schwarzenberg was an Austrian Nazi and the father of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger, former governor of California, is an unofficial relative of the Schwarzenberg family, and that is why he's been allowed to become a famous and wealthy actor and politician as the governor of California. The Nazi SS used the Skull and Bones, a secret society, secret service. Hitler had the SS, so does the Vatican. Used the Skull and Bones symbol. Schwarzenegger can be seen on the cover of Time magazine with Michael Bloomberg wearing a Skull and Bones belt buckle. Hello. Steven Schwartzman is an American investor worth over $10 billion. It's more than that. CEO and co-founder of Blackstone Group, one of the largest private investment groups in the world, and a member of Yale's Scale and Bones Secret Society. Schwartzman is also head of Donald Trump's Economic Advisory Council. The German word for black is Schwartz. Blackstone financed and partly owns BlackRock Investments, which manages $5.7 trillion. George Soros, whose original last name was Schwartz, how many knew that, was up until recently worth over $25 billion. He's from Budapest, where the Habsburg and Schwarzenberg families governed over as empires and lords. The self-identified Jew George Soros admitted to assisting the Nazis in confiscating property from Jews during his youth. Soros created the Open Society, which is involved in funding radical political groups as a means to destabilize societies while pretending to represent civil liberties. He and his son Alexander and Jonathan founded JS Capital Management. They also financed Nazi-style persecution carried out by secret societies. Dieter Schwartz is a German billionaire and runs a retail monopoly called Schwartz Group. Schwartz is a financier and was CEO of Laurel Space and Communications, who do the fake satellites, which is merged with Orion Network, which is run by Kevin Patrick Power. He was married to Karen Ackers, and she's the daughter of Prince Henrik Orth Pallavicini of the noble Austrian house of Pallavicini. Laurel Skynet was a subsidiary of Laurel Space and Communications. Skynet is also the name of the artificial intelligence that takes over the world in a movie Terminator, which stars Arnold Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger met with the criminal bankers Rothschild and Buffett several years back. Soros, Schwartz, and Schwartzman are all court factors handling the finances and interests of the House of Schwarzenberger. Arnold Schwarzenberger is really a prince of the Schwarzenberg family, like the Duke of California. The Schwarzenberg family serves the Roman Catholic House of Habsburgs as the Knights of Order of the Golden Fleece. The Habsburg family served the black nobility of Italy as the Knights of Order of Malta. These Nazis are pure evil and should be exterminated. Now notice he says the black nobility. He will not say black pope. This guy argues that Zeus, Ahuwahzeus, argues that the black nobility run the show, when in reality it's the Knights of Malta, who we'll get into in a minute. So this is part of the obfuscation and kind of like faint, so we don't get all the story. So, how about the Bushes? Let's get into the royal family of the United States. You didn't know the United States had a royal family, did you? The Bush family were German nobility that branched off from the House of Bush. The Bush family ruled as feudal lords in the regions of Ravensburg and Osnabrück, located in Westphalia. The House of Bush had several family branches in the Holy Roman Empire, and the Bush family are one of them. The German word for Bush is Busch. The movement of protesting against Roman papal authority rose up at Osnabrück, so they brought in the Jesuits to combat the protesters of Rome. The University of Osnabrück was then turned into Jesuit University for a short period of time. Jeb Bush is a Roman Catholic convert and a fourth-degree Knights of Columbus. Bush's senior grandfather, George Herbert Walker, was Jesuit educated from Stonyhurst College. Adolphus Bush was an ancestor of the former Bush family of Westphalia and the co-founder of the Anheuser-Busch Beer Company. How many know that? The Sons of Silence biker gang also use the Anheuser-Busch logo. The Bush family are also intermarried with the German-Dutch royalty family, the House of Lippe. The Pierce name from Barbara Pierce Bush comes from the Percy family, who are British peers and dukes of Northumberland. The Percy family also settled a covert family branch in Mississippi, which became politicians and plantation owners with their Trail Lake plantation. Thomas Walker was an ancestor of the Bush family and was a British slave trader. John and Francis Walker were politicians in Virginia that helped to transform the Virginia Company into the United States. You see how long this ownership's been going on. I believe that Walker family are closely related descendants of the Templar family of Devon. The Bush family are like the royal family of the United States, working as princes under the authority of the House of Windsor, which have German ancestry. George Herbert Walker Bush is a Knight, sir, of the House of Windsor's Order of Bath. The CIA headquarters is called George Bush Center of Intelligence because the Bush family have a continual authority over D.C. and the CIA as the highest level political family in the United States. Axel von dem Busch was a Nazi soldier who planned to assassinate Adolf Hitler, which is just another one of the many lies by this wicked family, similar to the lies about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, which has killed over 2 million innocent people, based on lies, based on the bombs created and made by U.S. and British and bombed on these innocent people under lies. And we don't even talk about it. We don't even mention it anymore. We just sweep it under the carpet. But this is the karma that will come back to the United States. Guaranteed. For our silence, we will receive the karma we've dished out on others. So when it happens to us, don't complain. We deserve it. German royal family and noble families helped to engineer Hitler and the Nazis. Prescott Bush's Union Bank Corporation was holding gold for Nazis and was shut down under the Trading with the Enemies Act. J. Bush and Company was a continuation of the Union Bank Corporation and founded by the Skull and Bonesman Jonathan Bush. J. Bush and Company was bought by Riggs Bank, which absorbed into PNC Financial Services after allowing money laundering into Saudi Arabia. George Bush was investigated for insider trading of shares in Harken Energy, which purchased a Spectrum 7 energy company, which was financed by James Bath, a business associate of the Bin Laden family. Vannevar Bush oversaw the Manhattan Project as the head of the Office of Scientific Research and Development and was also founder of Raytheon. Stephen Walker is the director of DARPA today. That's the Advanced Military Intelligence Research Arm. Wesley G. Bush runs Northrop Grumman as CEO. Northrop Grumman is the huge military and space company in California. The Bush family basically own and run the military-industrial complex and are using directed energy weapons on civilians. Yep, they did it here in Santa Rosa. Thank you, guys. The Bush family, Prescott Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, the banker Jonathan Bush, and George Bush were all initiated into the Skull and Bones Secret Society at Yale. John M. Walker was the uncle of George Bush Sr. and also Skull and Bones. John Walker was an investment banker whose firm G.H. Walker, Laird and Company was absorbed by Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Ziggy. The Nazi SS used the Skull and Bones symbol. The Skull and Bones Secret Society at Yale is a military council, which is why George Bush Sr. started the Gulf War and George Bush Jr. started the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. The Bush family are war profiteers. The Skull and Bones also used military and war for recruiting soldiers into paramilitary death squads, which are used inside the United States for persecution and covert assassinations. The Bush family are mass-murdering war criminals, terrorists, war profiteers, and all-around menace to humanity, no doubt. All right, so the Royal Society, the Royal Society of London, you heard of that, supposedly the authentication of science. So the royal and noble bloodlines have deep connections with Hollywood and the entertainment industry, especially through marriages. Tom Cruise married Katie Holmes at the Odescalchi Castle. The Odescalchi family are black nobility connected with the Vatican. Let's say Black Pope. George Clooney got married in Venice at the Amman Canal Grand Hotel or Palazzo, whatever the word is, formerly built and owned by the Italian nobility and located right next to Palazzo Giustiniani. Clooney has a home in Italy, so what? Walter Vetrani, the former mayor of Rome, the black nobility, made George Clooney the ceremonial leader of Hollywood. Steven Spielberg and Kevin Spacey are both knights of the British Empire, sirs. Harvey Weinstein was knighted, Sir Harvey Weinstein was knighted under the House of Windsor's British Empire in 2004. The musician Bono, Sir Bono, was knighted under the Order of British Empire. The adopted and honorary Prince Frederick of Anhalt was married to the actress Zsa Zsa Gabor and resides in Bel Air. Prince Harry and Prince William can be seen hanging out at parties with Kanye West in photos. So what? Nikki Hilton Rothschild is a model, and she married James Rothschild, a British nobility. Sophia Wilkeman is on the show of 2.5 Men, and she's married to British nobility of Prince Frederick Windsor. Prince Harry Windsor is dating the American actress to be married Meghan Markle. The American actress Grace Kelly married Prince Rainier III of Monaco and was the mother of the current reigning Prince II of Monaco. The royal families are controlling Hollywood and have propped up their idols as Americanized royalty. They have also weaponized Hollywood through the Church of Scientology. Many members of Hollywood are made idols to act as leaders of secret societies and are initiated into these groups through the Church of Scientology, Freemasonry, or the Kabbalah Center. The Church of Scientology was founded on the occult teachings of Aleister Crowley and the Ordo Templi Orientis. And also, I should note also that Aleister Crowley has been rumored to be the father of Barbara Nee Bush as well. They look very much alike. The Royal Society is an older and similar group and founded based on the teachings of scientific occultist Francis Bacon, the first Viscount of St. Alban. After the British Royal Society was established, they created the Royal Institution entirely run by British royalty nobility to act as its superior. While they're covertly working with Silicon Valley, the Church of Scientology, and Kabbalah Center to develop and merge occult teachings of witchcraft, alchemy, and other forms of sorcery with electronics. Will Smith is in a video admitting to using alchemy. Alchemy is the unnatural, no, it is natural, manipulation of human biology. It just depends how you use it. It's just like a sword. It can cut, it can heal. Members of Silicon Valley, along with DARPA, have weaponized the electronics and society based on occult teachings, which can hack into a person's brain and physiology. Occultists trained in hacking and using the dark web can activate these programs and target people. These programs are all hidden in a logarithmic code, and the frequencies emitted from the electronics and the wireless frequencies are invisible to the eye. And if you want to get more into that, I did a piece called Touchless Torture, Target Humanity, which I get very much into, Wi-Fi touchless torture that they're bringing on to everybody. So, Engineers of the Wars, Knights of Malta, notice the Red Cross. Notice this is also these symbols you see here. You see it if you expand it out. It's also the fire department symbol. And you'll see this symbol here in a lot of places when you start to see it. It's everywhere. All right, so the SMOM, the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, is the oldest knighthood in the world, and its headquarters is located in Rome at the Palazzo Malta. The SMOM is considered a sovereign entity under international law and under the United Nations, just like the City of London, just like Washington, D.C. They also have extraterritorial within Italy, similar to an embassy. They can't be touched. The Knights of Malta and Orders of St. John are the engineers of war. Many members of the royal families and heads of constitutional monarchies are members of Knights of Malta. What makes them different from other knighthoods is that they're a sovereign entity, and they have higher authority over the Vatican. Again, the Black Pope. And then there's the 13 satanic bloodline families, which this guy here who does this website refers to as the Black Nobility. So you can see all the different people again, the Grand Duke, King Philip of Belgium. All the players and royalty are all members of this club. And guess what? We're not in it. Queen Elizabeth II is the Queen of the island of Malta, and she runs the related Protestant branch called the Order of St. John. Two sides of the same coin. Prince Carlo Massimo is president of the Italian Association of the Order of Malta and is covertly overseeing it. The Massimo family are part owners of the Holy See and Order of Malta and part of the 13 satanic bloodlines that Fritz Springmeier gets into in his book. Very important book. The Sovereign Council of the Order of Malta is a top military council in the world. Sir William F. Buckley was a Knight of Malta and conservative political commentator in the U.S. Sir Pat Buchanan is another Knight of Malta. Sir Peter Grace was an American businessman, politician, and member of the Council of National Policy. Sir Vice Chancellor Franz von Papen was a Knight of Malta. The Nazi General Reinhard Gehlen, who was in charge of communication psyops, was a Knight of Malta. Sir Dwight D. Eisenhower was the only officially known Knight of Malta that has been President of the United States. Sir Knight of Malta Joseph Smith was Inspector General for the Department of Defense under George Bush, and also an executive for the private military company Blackwater Worldwide, now renamed Academy. Joseph Smith was a professor at Jesuit Georgetown and worked as a political advisor for Donald Trump during his election campaign. Donald Trump went to Fordham, a Jesuit school, and his kids go to Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania, a sidebar Jesuit school. The founder of Blackwater, Eric Prince, is suspected Knights of Malta. Other Knights include Sir CIA Director John McCone, Sir William J. Casey, Sir William Colby, who was nicknamed the Warrior Priest. The Knights of Malta have a hidden operation at Georgetown and work with the Secret Society of Jesus in overseeing the U.S. Pentagon. Sir Joseph Kennedy was a Knight of Malta and married Vatican Countess Rosa Elizabeth Fitzgerald Kennedy on the Irish Fitzgerald nobility. Adrian Fitzgerald is a Knight of Malta and ran the Irish Association of the Orders of Malta. Sir Knight of Malta Alexander Haig was a U.S. General, U.S. Secretary of State under Ronald Reagan, and White House Chief of Staff under Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. Sir General Haig was also a Jesuit educated from Georgetown University. He was the one covertly running the Pentagon and White House during the 70s and 80s. The CIA was founded by William Donovan, who was nicknamed the father of the CIA, and he was knighted, Sir William Donovan, and he was knighted by the two Vatican orders and likely a Knight of Malta. Okay, other Jesuit-educated CIA directors included Robert Gates, George Tennant, Leon Panetta, Michael Morell, David Petraeus, and John Brennan, and they are overseen by the Order of Malta. The Jesuit order was established by the Farnese family under Pope Paul III through the papal bull called the Regimini Militanis Ecclesia, which is the military regiment of the church. The House of Farnese lived in the Pentagonal fortress called the Farnese Caprarola. The Farnese bloodline evolved into the Bourbon, Two Sicilies, and Bourbon-Parma families. The Vatican and the Knights of Malta are deeply involved with U.S. military intelligence. No shit. The Knights of Malta oversee the Sacred Constantinian Military Order of St. George, headed up by the Knights of Malta Prince Carlos of Bourbon, Two Sicilies. The Knights of Malta are engineers of war, and there's also an American association, the Order of Malta, with Sir Peter J. Kelly as president, Richard Maloney as the chancellor, and James F. O'Connor as treasurer. A little different history about the United States, huh? All right, moving on. We got a couple more here, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Unholy Armies of the Vatican. Mussolini established the Vatican City in the nation in 1929. Remember the Organic Act, 1871, established the city-state of Washington, D.C. Mussolini was the head of the fascist regime in Italy, which was unified with German Nazis. Both the Italian fascists and German Nazis used the Roman salute from the ancient Rome, which is now known as the Nazi salute. In 1933, very important year, Nazi General Chancellor Sir Franz von Papen signed the Rackenskorten Agreement with the Vatican under Cardinal Eugenio Pacelli, and he later became Pope as Pius XII. Pacelli was architects of Nazism. Today his family is headed up by the Prince Pacelli and other members. They made connections with the black nobility in Vatican, and they were later granted their princely titles under ownership of the Pacellis in Rome. Van Papen was also a Roman knight in Malta, as we addressed. Hitler was quoted referring to Himmler. Himmler was his right-hand man. It's always the person to the right, folks. It's not the one you see. It's the Joe Bidens. It's the Pences. It's always the ones at the right hand. So Himmler was at the right hand. He tried to become the Black Pope, assassinated the Black Pope at the time. There was a gap in the Black Popes for a while. The Nazis, let me see, Ignatius Loyola, remember Ignite, Loyola was the co-founder and the first superior general of the Roman Catholic Society of Jesus, or Jesuits. The Nazis' Schutzstaffel was structured off a Jesuits' ideology of absolute obedience to its leaders or generals. The Jesuits answer to the Black Pope. Whatever he says they do, kill, murder, whatever, they will do it. That's their vow. The Vatican planned and enabled the escape of the Nazis and fascists in Europe, known as the Nazi rat lines at the Vatican City State. This is after World War II, with fascists in Spain, to get the Nazis, their guys, out of there. The Vatican used its connections with Switzerland to obtain fake passports and IDs for the Nazis to flee to Russia, United Kingdom, United States, but especially to South America and to Argentina, where Pope Francis was born, the first Jesuit Pope in 600 years. Not a coincidence. The OSS and CIA operations through Operation Paperclip brought over 3,200 Nazis into the United States, high-level Nazis, and were overseen by CIA founder Sir William Donovan, who was the Vatican Knight of Order of St. Sylvester and the Knight of the British Empire. Joseph Ratzinger, or Rottweiler as they called him, he was brought in to try and end the whole pedophilia scandals going on in the church. As Pope Benedict XIV was a Nazi youth member, and there have been evidence removed that suggests that Pope John II worked for IG Farben, which produced the deadly gas Xylon B for Nazis. Well, did they really use gas? We don't even know. That could be a misdirection right there. The British Crown established modern Israel after it seized Palestine. And this is very important about Israel and Britain. The British Crown established modern Israel after it seized Palestine World War I, and through its migration contracts under British law of mandatory Palestine with the World Zionist Organization, which is headed up by French and Swiss Zionists. Prince Edward VIII was a Nazi supporter. The British royal family are involved with both Nazis and Zionists, playing both sides. Napoleon Bonaparte was the first modern political Zionist who proclaimed for all Jews to settle in Jerusalem. Christian Crusaders were the first group to attempt to dominate Jerusalem. They went down there and they gave them a bunch of guns and stuff so they could fight against the Palestinians to create the Jerusalem. That's how they started. And it was also with the Balfour Act, I think it was in 1909, where Sir Balfour and the Rothschilds creating the state of Israel. Zion is on a hill in Jerusalem which represents a military stronghold. Crusaders were Christian Zionists. Buckingham Palace is a royal court, and the British Rothschild family served the House of Windsor. Alan Greenspan was a former chairman, as we talked about, and also a Knight of the British Empire and a Knight of the Bonaparte's Legion of Honor. Now, this guy ran the money supply for the Federal Reserve, a private corporation, and had authority over the entire U.S. currency. And he's he's a member of the British Empire, folks. Anybody want to scream? It is the Roman Catholic King of Spain that holds the official title of King of Jerusalem today. It is the Roman Catholic King of Spain that holds the official title of King of Jerusalem today. Section 1, Article 10 of the 1993 Fundamental Agreement between the Holy See, which is the Vatican, and the State of Israel. Israel is Isis, Ra, and Elohim. Israel, Egyptian. The Holy See and the State of Israel jointly reaffirm the right of, free in the exercise and their respective rights and powers, and commit themselves to respect this principle in their mutual relations and their cooperation for the good of the people." End quote. The Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem is a Vatican knighthood founded during the First Crusade under the Kingdom of Jerusalem. The Latin Patriciate of Jerusalem was reestablished in 1847 before the State of Israel as a continuation of the Latin Kingdom of Israel. Established in 1847 before the State of Israel under the continuation of the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem. So please stop saying the Jews, not the Jesuits, folks. Here's the information. Look it up for yourself. See if this guy's being valid. And if he is, it's not the Jews, it's the Jesuits. The Jews are the Korthofjudens. They're the bankers that get to make all the money with interest as long as they're beholden to the religious Vatican Jesuits. That's how it works. Today, the Vatican, which is the smallest nation on the earth, owns large amounts of property in Jerusalem, and based on their agreement, suggests they operate as sovereigns in their estates, since their agreement says they have the right to property and exercise power. Section 3 of Article 3 in the Holy See and State of Israel Agreement states, quote, concerning Catholic legal personality at canon law, the Holy See and the State of Israel will negotiate on giving it full effect in Israeli law, following a report from a joint subcommission of experts, end quote. The it in this section is referring to canon law. This seems to say their intent is to implement canon law through Israeli law. And then you have these others, this alliance group. They're the group that's here surrounding the Santa Rosa fires. They're a disaster recovery group, and they're here as too. I thought it was interesting that they're an international insurance company that's in our backyard profiting from our disasters here in Santa Rosa from the fires. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was the last Shah of Iran and a Vatican Knight of the Order of the Golden Spur. Sir Mohammed. During World War II, Adolf Hitler met with Amin al-Husseini and incorporated him and his following into the Nazis. Osama bin Laden, Joe Biden, Barack Hussein. Which is the bad guy? This is why today Hamas and Hezbollah use the Nazi salute. Hitler created Hamas and Hezbollah, which branched off from the Nazis' Azerbaijani legions. The creators of Zionism and Nazism, which are the royal and noble families, want a holy war centered around Jerusalem because Talmudic fascist and Shari fascist, and then rebuild their universal Catholic candle temple in Jerusalem out of the chaos. So just to back up what this guy has postulated, I don't know what the name of this guy's site on Zeus is, but I did a piece on Albert Pike. If you don't know about Albert Pike, you should. He founded Freemasonry in Arkansas. He's in the mausoleum in the Scottish Rite Freemasons in Washington, D.C. But he had what's Pike prophecies or predictions, and here's Baphomet statues being put into Detroit and other places. But World War III has already begun, predicted by Albert Pike in 1872. In 1871, there's that year again, 1871, the Organic Act created Washington, D.C. We have Albert Pike predicting worlds. First World War, permit the Illuminati to overthrow the czars. That happened. World War II, taking advantage of the differences between fascist and political Zionists. That was executed. Here's the Third World War coming up. By their deeds, by their predictions. They love to call their shots predictive programming. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the agentur of the Illuminati, between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. It must be conducted in such a way that Islam and Zionism, the State of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. That's what they're doing right now with running up all this massive debt. We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, or origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light, Luciferian, through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in public view. The manifestation will be the result from general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism. Again, they're going to destroy Christianity, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Now, if you don't think that's happening, here, look back to the statue. This is in a statue of Baphomet that was erected in Detroit. They tried to put one into Oakland. They're doing it, folks. They're calling it and they're doing it. It's right here. All right, so let's wrap this up. I got one more to go over here. The Red Dragon. All right, the clan of Gehenna. All right, the House of Windsor is one of the most wicked and satanic bloodlines. They are involved with human sacrifices, mind control, satanic ritual abuse, cannibalism, drinking blood, bathing in blood, human trafficking, opium trafficking, terrorism, money laundering, and war profiteering. Prince Charles openly claims to descend from Vlad Dracul or Vlad the Impaler, who owns he also owns Vlad the Impaler's old castle in Transylvania. Vlad Dracul was known for being sadistic and tormenting his victims. Dracul means dragon, and the Dracul family were members of the Order of the Dragon. Vlad Dracul was the Prince of Wallachia. Prince Charles is the Prince of Wales. Wales gets its name from Voilà. Wales also uses a red dragon on its flag. Some of Transylvanian nobility covertly settled in Scotland. Prince Charles is extremely sadistic and ruthless, and he's backed up by his cousin, Prince Philip of Holnum-Langenburg. The British Rothschilds served the House of Windsor. The Rothschilds and Goldsmith families are the Windsor's court factor financiers, or court Hofjuden. Queen Elizabeth II takes her name from Dracul's cousins, the Bathory family, and Elizabeth Bathory was the serial killer known as the Blood Countess, and reports claim that she bathed in blood of hundreds of women. They covertly continue their ancestors' blood rituals of bathing in blood, and they wear blood-red capes during public ceremonies. Jimmy of Seville, the pedophilist, was a close friend with Prince Charles and accused of hundreds of times of pedophilia and sexual abuse. Jimmy Seville was a Knight of the British Empire, Sir Jimmy Seville, and a Vatican Knight of the Order of St. Gregory. Canada is a crown colony, and throughout the past century there are many official reports of missing Aboriginal children. Up in Canada, there was a huge scandal up there. They were taken from their parents and forced into crown schools and crown wards or orphanages. These were the feeders for their pedophilia. Missing children is acknowledged in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. The Windsor family traffic and murder children. He says every time he exposes a sick family, they put out a propaganda piece against their defense. The House of Windsor have a harp on their coats of arms. The harp was used for bewitching minds in ancient times. They have authority of the United States Air Force's harp, which is radiating the atmosphere with electromagnetic waves and is used for mass mind control and weather manipulation. Harp is named in references to the harp and in use in ancient mind control. Wind soars like winds and tornadoes. The House of Windsor are funding and running satanic cults in the United Kingdom and the United States, and these cults are involved in mind control, satanic ritual abuse, and human sacrifice. Prince Edward is the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of England. Their peerages also manage Freemasonry, and there are tens of thousands of Masonic lodges, secret societies, in the United States. Now, the Freemasons, the first 3 levels are great. They're doing great stuff. They're holding cook-offs and crab feeds and raising money for good causes. It's when you get higher when all the bad shit starts coming in. Freemasons are involved with satanic ritual abuse, mind control, pedophilia, blood drinking, and other wickedness. The Windsor family managed the Skull and Bones Secret Society at Yale. Yale was established under British Crown's authority and Crown Colony, as we showed earlier. Skull and Bones is a military council and a death cult in the United States with the Bush family as top members. They also use war to initiate death squads used for persecution and assassinations on domestic level. Prince Harry worships violence, death, Holocaust, and destruction. Prince William is a sexual sadist, serial killer, and pedophile. Sad to report. The Windsor family claimed to be part owners of the United States as a continuation of the Virginia Company. The founding fathers were British Freemasons, as we went into earlier. Sir George Walker Bush is a British Knight of the Orders we went into. The Gulf War, Afghan War, and Iraq War occurred under the British family. In Afghanistan, produces the majority of the world's opium since the U.S. invasion. Now, George Poppy Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, George Poppy Bush, he was known because he ran the poppy fields, the opium fields. We have complete control of the 5th world country, Afghanistan. Again, opium sales and opiates are higher than they have ever been because we're distributing it. This is how they fund all the black operations. We've been doing it for a very long time. Look at the movie Air America. The Windsor and Bush families are controlling the opium production in Afghanistan. Their opium is a continuation of the British Crown's East India Company, which controlled the opium trade. They currently sell it to pharmaceutical companies, and the rest is handed to Italian mafia who process it to heroin and distribute on the streets. Opium is a strong depressant and is being used to weaken society as they attempt power grabs. The British Crown attempted to do this in China, which led to them seizing Hong Kong when the emperor banned opium. The British Crown still have major control over Hong Kong, which has economic leverage over the rest of China. The Windsor family has leverage over organized crime in Hong Kong like the Triads. Prince Charles is covertly controlling the Hells Angel motorcycle crime syndicate. Many members of Hells Angels are descendants of Irish and Scottish clans. say hi to somebody, you say, hello. The Hells Angels established themselves in the United Kingdom after the Beatles invited them. The Hells Angels set up charters in New Zealand and Canada, which are nations ruled by the House of Windsor. Now, also notice there's a Windsor tie knot, right? Choke your neck. Prince Charles is the head of the cult of hell, and the Hells Angels are his minions. They are known for blowing up their enemies. Lovely. The Hells Angels have also infiltrated the trucking industry and work with organized crime groups and trafficking weapons, drugs, and human beings. When I first exposed the House of Windsor, owned the Hells Angels, I had a Hells Angel park in front of my house. The House of Windsor control much of Freemasonry through the Grand Lodge of England. So just to validate a little bit about some of these wild, amazing claims that most of us have never even thought of or heard of about families and ownerships of the United States and who's running what. I did a piece on all presidents related by blood. Some young girl connected the genealogy. Her grandmother was a genealogist, and they connected the relatives. And look who's all connected to who. It's all in the bloodlines. Negative bloodlines transfer. Positive does not transfer. So all of these have negative bloodlines. So David Icke, one of the first to say that 43 presidents from George Washington Bush would express genetic diversity. The President of the United States are much as a royal dynasty as anything in Europe, from whence their bloodlines claim. And I'll put this in the show notes. Here's Vladimir the Impaler, going all the way back to him. So it does dovetail with some of my work. Here, Michael Tazarian, the Americans have always been owned and governed by the same royal families of Britain and Europe. So we're just waking up to this very sick, sad fact that whatever we think happened did not happen. It's not. The story we've been told has been a complete lie. Everything is a lie. Nothing is true. And all of these, George Washington, Jefferson, they're all beholden to nobilities of Europe and to the Vatican, who run and own the shows. And I'll put this in the show notes. But a lot of what Mr. Zeus here is reporting, I can confirm, but I don't believe or don't subscribe to everything he says, especially about the black nobility. So again, according to Burke's Peerage, which is one of the oldest record keepers of history of genetics, even according to the official genealogy, Bill Clinton is genetically related to the House of Windsor, which we just went over. You can't make this stuff up. All in the family, folks. They're all on the same team, playing two different sides, pretending. They're just pretending it's all a play. All right, I'm going to end on this since we're dealing with blood and bloodlines. The human body contains 6 quarts of blood. In one day, your blood travels nearly 12,000 miles. Your heart beats around 35 million times per year. How many times we thank our heart for beating 35 million times a year? Or thank the breath, the air that just showed up so we could live life. Being grateful and appreciative in these tough times is critical, folks. These are extremely difficult times, but they're going to get much worse. They've got their plan. They've been doing it for such a long time. But your heart does beat millions of barrels of blood during an average lifetime. Make that heart beat for others. Make that heart beat for peace and love towards your brothers and your neighbors and your sisters. Make everyone part of your family, and there will be no enemies. In order to forgive the enemy, you must create an enemy. These are just sick people. They have sick agendas, and here exposing them all is one of the first things we can possibly do. But understanding that this has all been a sick game being played on us, and we're just waking up. We're just at the forefront. We're pushing the bow. We're breaking the wind, and I honor all of you who are awake and awakening now as well. So I'm going to end with a list from my book, geoengineering book, of all the secret societies and all the members of secret societies, and I hope you can share this. Hopefully I got this in under an hour. That was my goal. And I'm tired of hearing my voice, so I'm going to go now. Thanks a lot. It's Plain Truth. Thanks for sticking this out, and we'll catch you in the next vid doc. Love one another, folks, and peace.